Hey, how's it going everyone? Welcome back to Keeping Fish Simple. So in today's video, I'm going to give you guys 7 tips for keeping Bristlenose Plecos in your aquariums. Now I learned these tips over the past 3 years of breeding these guys and keeping them. And today I'm going to unload a bunch of information for you guys to learn. So make sure you stay around to the end of the video to listen to all the information. Okay, so my first piece of advice is to keep wood in your aquarium. Now when I say this, I mean like a piece of driftwood. In the wild, Bristlenose Plecos are in habitats where there's heaps and heaps of driftwood and things that they can snack on during the day. And the actual elements inside of the wood are really important for the digestive system of these fish. So it's really important that you guys keep some natural wood inside of the aquarium, because otherwise they will become malnourished and they'll be missing out on these elements that they need and these minerals and vitamins that they need to survive. Okay, so my second piece of advice is a breeding tip, and this is to do a 50% water change if you guys are trying to get these guys to lay eggs. So in the wild, Bristlenose Plecos live in streams of water where it's constantly flowing, and they tend to breed in the rainy season. So we have to trick our Bristlenose Plecos into thinking that it's the rainy season in the aquarium. Now, the way we do this is to have clean water and fresh water put into the aquarium, and normally colder water. So the way we do this is to do a 50% water change. So by doing a 50% water change, the Bristlenose Plecos will think that there's been a big rain and that they can breed again. So the reason they breed in the rainy season is because there's heaps more food for their fry to snack on after they've been raised up. So that's why they breed then, and this is the tip that I can give you guys to get them to lay eggs if they're not doing it already. Okay, so my third tip is a dietary tip, and it's to feed your Bristlenose Plecos 85% plants and 15% protein. Now the reason for this is Bristlenose Plecos are vegetarian fish, so they only eat plant-based things. So things like zucchinis and peas and some spirulina algae wafers and things like that. But they also take a little bit of protein just to get them to build up some good muscle and good size on the fish. So we can do this with pretty much, if you have an aquarium with extra community fish like danios or things like that, and you're feeding bloodworms, some of those bloodworms will fall to the floor and they'll eat that if they need to. You normally don't have to worry about this though, because there's progressive proteins and things like plants and that, so they normally don't have to worry about this. But if you guys wanted to know, a good ratio is about 15% protein to 85% plants. So my fourth piece of advice is a pretty obvious and blatant tip, but it's to do frequent water changes. And the reason for this is these guys need really clean water, because otherwise the oxygen levels that they require, they won't meet. So if you have really dirty water and water that's full of nitrates and ammonia and things like that, they won't be able to breathe properly. So the fifth piece of advice is something that I've learned from experience, and other people have asked me this heaps and heaps of times, and it's because their Bristlenose aren't breeding, and I normally ask a few questions, but one of the main things is your cave size. So some people buy these small caves, and I don't even know why fish stores sell them, but if your caves are too small for the Bristlenose to fit in, they won't actually be able to bring any females in there and lay eggs. So they need a decent size, not huge, but a pretty decent sized cave for them to actually fit into and breed. So if they're not breeding for you, maybe consider getting a bigger cave. So my sixth piece of advice is something that you guys need to know before you go and actually buy anything, and it's to buy adults instead of juveniles. I bought plenty of juveniles in the past, and I've found it way more difficult to acclimate juveniles and get them into an aquarium, because they're a little bit more sensitive to pH levels and things like that. On the other hand, adult Bristlenose are perfect. So if you buy adult Bristlenose, you'll get them to breed straight away, and you'll have a way easier time getting them into the aquarium and getting them to fit into their new environment. So my final tip is tip number 7, and this is if they are going to the top of the aquarium and reaching for like a mouthful of air, this means that you've got way too much ammonia in your aquarium. And the reason for this is obviously the thing I was talking about before with the oxygen. When they're going to the top of the aquarium, they're going to take a breath, and they can actually breathe through their mouth and swallow the air. And that's something I've mentioned in previous videos. In fact, in 6 facts you didn't know about Bristlenose Plecos, but they can do that. So they tend to not die from this, but it can be an indicator for the rest of your aquarium with some fish that can't do this, whether there's too much ammonia in the aquarium. So if your fish are going to the top of the aquarium and taking a bite of air, like a gulp of air, that means there's too much ammonia and nitrates in your water. On the other hand, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I really appreciate it. If you guys learned something today, please leave a like down below and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next video.